glad to be here. All right, so as she mentioned, I do make sourdough. Does anyone else in the room make sourdough? Wow, there is a lot of you. Wow, I actually find that quite impressive when you have young kids to be in the sourdough game. Yes, I mean, I think the only reason I feel like I can get away with it is because I have older ones to watch my younger ones, so you're awesome if you do it. For those of you who don't know, I'm just going to explain a tiny bit about this whole sourdough process. In case you don't know, there's this thing called the starter. You guys all know what the starter is, kind of like the yeast of the bread, and it's something that you have to keep alive. And so what you do is you add a little bit of starter, and then you add water, and you add flour, sorry, and you have to keep doing this regularly in order to keep it alive, and if you don't, it will eventually die. Well, I think I've been doing this for 2 years-ish, and I have killed maybe 4 to 5 starters. I don't know how I did it. It was probably in like 1 or 2 months, and it was just starter after starter. I had to keep going to friends to find people who had starters because mine were dead. I don't know what happened. I think it was along the lines of I just got busy. I forgot to feed it. I didn't put effort into it, right? That's just how it works. And, it was sad, but I was able to keep it going. But what's fascinating is if you do feed this thing, like if you are really faithful and consistent, it can last for decades, right? Like for generations. You could have a grandmother who has a starter and she keeps it alive, and then she gives it to her daughter who keeps it alive, and then who will give it to her daughter and keep it alive. I mean, it can go on and on, impressively so. People will brag about how old their starter is because it's like it comes with history. It comes with like all the telling of the stories of what the grandmas went through and whatnot. It's very impressive. In fact, I found out that there is even a sourdough starter library in Belgium. And they will store these prehistoric type starters. Actually, the oldest one is from 1847, right? That is almost 180 years old. So that means for almost 2 centuries, someone has kept that thing alive, right? It has never died. But here's what is so cool about that, is all it took was some basic effort. All you needed was a little bit of starter, just adding some flour, adding some water over and over again, right? No grand recipe, no dramatic intervention. It was just faithful, basic care, and it made this thing alive and bubbly, impressively so. And I think that's a really helpful picture for our marriage. Because every married woman in here does not want a marriage that is dead or mostly dead, right? We want a marriage that has life in it, that has warmth, and it has stability, and it even has enjoyment. The kind of marriage that can get through the hard times and be intact, right? That kind of alive, long-lasting relationship is a beautiful thing. But it doesn't take grand gestures, right? It just takes faithful, basic care. It's like we need to feed our marriage, and when we do, we will see beautiful results. And I think of some of those results we've seen in society at times, where you see that old couple in the park and they're sitting there on the bench and they're really old, right? And they are just so content just being there. They don't have to say anything to each other. They're just with their person and they're happy, right? And there's no telling what they have been through in life, but they've been through it together and they're still together, right? It's beautiful. Or I think of these couples that I know where they were together to the bitter end, where one of them was dying and the other one was there nursing them all the way along the way, doing whatever that their spouse needed and was there to hold their hand when their time came. Such a sweet thing, but that kind of depth doesn't just happen, right? It's invested into year after year. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning, is how to invest in our marriages in a way to make sure that they are really built to last. So let's start very foundationally. Point number 1 on your notes, if you want to write it down. Let's just start by making sure we are a committed wife. Be a committed wife. And all of our points today are going to be in that vein, right? What we can do as wives, because our husbands aren't here, right? And even if they were here, we can't control what they do. All we can control is what we do and how the part we play in investing into our marriage. So that's how we're going to think of it, is what can we do as wives. So first, we need to start with that mentality of commitment. And I mean that in two ways. The first way is just the basic commitment, like I am in this, right? I am in this for the long haul. I'm not going to ditch out as soon as my husband gets annoying, right? I'm not going to ditch out when he starts not doing the household chores like I hope he does. When, he's not everything that I thought he would be, I'm not going to just ditch out. I'm going to commit to him the way that I would want him to commit to me, right? We are not perfect. We are not going to do things all perfectly. We're going to surely disappoint our husbands at some point. And what we want from them is to truly commit to us. And that's, of course, the kind of women that we want to be. And of course, this in it for the long haul commitment is God's design. In the Bible, it talks about how a man and a woman, how they will leave their family and they will be united to each other as husband and wife, and basically till death do they part. It's a commitment that you officially make before God on your wedding day. And it's a kind of commitment that marks something different than any other kind of commitment. And it lasts a lifetime. And I think it would just be good to start there and to renew that commitment in our minds. like, yes, I am in this. I am in this for the long haul. And then I think it's probably even good for our marriages, as cheesy as it might be, is to communicate, re-communicate that commitment to your spouse. Like, just so you know, babe, I am in this for the long haul, right? You cannot get rid of me if you wanted to. Right? We are in this together, to just restate that to him. That's basically what we all said at our wedding day, right? For better or for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, as long as we both shall live. And you might not have said those exact words, but I think you had that mentality when you got married, and we need to renew that. And it's neat to think that there's really no other relationship that's like this, right? That has this type of commitment. Like a friendship. We have friendships and they're good and they're important and we should invest in those, but they're not the same, right? Friendships change over the years. Like you can have certain types of friendships when you're in college, and then it kind of changes when you get married, and then maybe when you have young kids, and then when you get older. There's, friendships for different reasons at different times, and it's okay that we're flexible in those. That's not the same as marriage. Marriage, you stay closely connected, intimately so, no matter what comes. Even with our kids, right? Kids, what a precious relationship, right? What would we not do for our kids? We would die for our kids. We love them so dearly. And yet, even in that relationship, they are supposed to one day grow up and start their own family, right? Leave us and go be united to their new family and have their own kids, and they start focusing more there. So even our kid relationships are not the same as the kind of commitment that we have as husband and wife. Marriage is the one relationship designed to remain steady through all of it. The changing seasons, the pressures, the joys, the hard years. And because it is a relationship like no other, there's another kind of commitment. So there's the I'm in it for the long haul, I'm not going to ditch out kind of commitment. But then there's also this daily commitment that we should have. Like if this relationship is so special, then I should really make it the priority that it deserves. I should have a daily commitment. So that's kind of the second commitment that we need to think through, is this daily commitment. Like as if you were to commit to wanting to be healthy, right? When you commit to want to be healthy, you start thinking through all kinds of things. You think through, okay, what should I start eating? What should I stop eating? What kind of exercise should I do? What are the things I should be around? Like you think all these details, and then you start implementing them practically because you want to have a healthy body. If you want to have a healthy marriage, you got to think through all these different aspects and then start implementing them because you really want to invest on a daily basis. You want a healthy marriage. It takes time and it takes work. So we'll get practical, but I think we should just start there, making sure that we want to make it a priority, that we realize that it is worth it. We can either live in a so-so marriage, right, our whole lives, or we can choose to say, no, I want a good marriage. I want a good, solid marriage. And I know you can't do that all on your own, right? Your husband has to get on board, but you can get the ball rolling. And the question is, are you going to put the work in so that you can have that happen? And if you're not motivated by that, right, just the idea of having a good marriage, here's a motivation for you. There is nothing better for your kids than for you to have a good marriage, right? It is so good for your kids to see that mom and dad, they love each other and they're committed and they're in this for the long haul. I mean, they are learning so much just by seeing a husband and a wife love each other well. Even if they only see you love your husband well, they are learning so much about life and about what they want in the future and about the kind of person they want to be. So if for no other reason, it is worth it for the sake of our kids to pursue a better marriage. So it is time to commit for the long haul and in a daily sense. Now let's think through how to put effort in. Point number 2, I put it like this. Try to be a kind wife, right? Be a kind wife. And that sounds so obvious, it's like the basic rule number 1, be nice, right? But it is so hard sometimes because marriage can be so hard sometimes, right? You have 2 people who are sinful people, right? We both don't do things perfectly, and we both also have our own opinions, and we both have our own ways that we do life and our own routines. And then we come together, and of course we are going to clash because we are not the same exact person with the same everything, right? We're going to rub up against each other. And so that can be hard. And not only that, who else sees your husband's flaws more than you do? And who sees your flaws more than he does? Right? And you start seeing each other's flaws day in, day out when you first wake up, when you're really tired late at night. Eventually you start getting irritated at each other. And then that gets the ball rolling in like the totally wrong direction, right? You're a little irritated, so you act a little, snippety or whatever. And then he's not really happy, and so he gets irritated and he starts acting a certain kind of way, and then just goes back and forth, back and forth. And this can happen, it could be for hours, right, in the day, and just kind of make the day like not such a great day. It could happen for days, right? You get the ball rolling the wrong direction for a while. And sometimes it's seasons. Sometimes it's entire marriages where if no one does anything different, the ball just keeps going the wrong direction. So something has to stop. Something has to change. And I think one of the things can be right here. Let's just commit to being kind. Let's be a kind person. No matter how he treats us, no matter what he says, no matter what kind of day it is, no matter whether he meets your expectations, be kind. And of course, that doesn't mean that you never talk about the things that disappoint you or the problems. Of course, you're going to talk about these things, you're going to work through things, but even as you do, make sure you are kind. I think there's 3 specific ways we could think through how to be a kind wife. And you have those subpoints there on your worksheet. I think the first one is to just think through having kind thoughts. Let's make sure we have kind thoughts about our husband. Basically, think about him the way you want him to think about you, right? Be gracious to him. Give him the benefit of the doubt. I have, unfortunately, an illustration of how I haven't given my husband the benefit of the doubt. I can think of times where, silly little things, like we go on a date night, and we talk ahead of time about the time that we're going to meet. Let's say we're going to meet a little early this time. I'm going to, try to get out the door a little earlier. He's going to try earlier, and it's like 5:45. We're going to meet at a restaurant because he's coming from work. I'm coming from home. So I work really hard to get there at 5:45, and I'm sitting there waiting for him, and he's not there. I don't get a call. I don't get a text. I'm sorry, I'm running late, coming. And so as I sit there, there's been times where I haven't given him the benefit of the doubt, and I start thinking, was he not listening in our conversation? Was he, multitasking? He didn't care? Does he not care about date nights the way I care about date nights, right? And you just start spiraling, going the wrong direction because I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt. If I was, I'd be thinking, he's a reasonable person, right? He probably was in a meeting and he wasn't able to get out of it. He might have been on a phone call of some really important nature in the car and he was not able to text me or whatever. Why assume that it was a bad reason before knowing it's a bad reason? All I'm doing is spiraling before he's even done anything wrong, right? And in my mind, it's almost like I've created this problem as if he's done something wrong and I have no reason to think that. And of course, eventually, they might do something wrong. We give them the benefit of the doubt, and we realize that he did do something wrong. Okay, fine, then you deal with it then, rather than creating a problem before it has even happened. And then when they do something wrong, well, part of being kind is just being a forgiving person, right? We need to be willing to be forgiving. This is just part of thought still. Just having the right kind of thoughts is being someone who doesn't hold grudges, who doesn't hold everything against their spouse and just keep dwelling on it and thinking about it. There's this quote that I've heard, maybe you've heard it too, that when you don't forgive someone or you have resentment, it's like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. Now, of course, hopefully our husband isn't actually our enemy, but you get the idea. When we don't forgive somebody, we're just doing harm to ourselves. It's not actually harming the person. We're harming ourselves because we're just dwelling on this thing, and it's painful, and it's ick, and we don't like it. So we've got to be willing to be people who let things go, who don't hold on to it forever. Now, of course, there's times where there's deep hurt. And when there's deep hurt, I'd say you need to deal with it. You need to get help if you need to. Whether it's, talk to somebody here like your table leader or a mentor mom, someone who's been married a long time and has gone through some of the things that you might have gone through, or at least would understand. I know here at the church we have free counseling, and that's definitely an option. If you want to talk through it in a more official way, it would be worth it. Whatever you need to do to be able to think kind thoughts of your husband, you should do that. And then one more thought in the realm of being kind in our thoughts is to just be thankful, right? Be thankful for anything that you can be thankful for when it comes to your husband. Is there anything that he does around the house that you can just notice a little more actively? Like, wow, that's so kind that he, takes out the trash, or that he, puts the kids to bed, or he, has a certain personality trait that maybe you used to appreciate, but you've kind of just, it's normal now. Anything that you can think of to be thankful for, you should go ahead and stop in your heart and your mind and be thankful. All right, another way to be kind is to do it in our words. So that's letter B. Be kind with your words, kind words. And of course, if you think of anything to be thankful for, that's where you should start, is to just say thank you, right? Let those words come out of your mouth. Thank you for, and whatever you can say that recognizes something that he has done that you appreciate. And just thinking back to that sourdough starter, like feeding it, like doing it regularly. Kind words, that's an easy way to feed it day after day, to feed your marriage just by having kind words come out of your mouth. Daily kind words will keep a marriage alive. And I think we have, of all people, we should be our husband's biggest cheerleader, right? He is the one that you picked to spend the rest of his life with. Who better to cheer him on in life? To tell him the things that he's good at, to recognize those things. Just even in a basic sense, to say, I hope you have a good day today. I know you have that big meeting. Let me know how it goes. Right, to just cheer him on in whatever he has going on in his life. Or think, too, of just kind words in having good conversation with our spouse. I mean, that's even a form of love, to just ask good questions, to get to know your spouse in a way that you used to want to get to know him when you were dating, right? When you used to be dating, you were probably asking deeper questions, like about his thoughts and his feelings, right? The deeper part of him. And now we're just doing life. We're all so busy, there's so many things going on. But what if we use our words to go deeper and to ask some of those questions again? So not just like, how was your day, but maybe just a little more deeper, like, what was the best part of your day and why? Or maybe think back to last year. What was one of your best memories that we had from last year? What's one of the best trips you think we've been on? Or go even deeper. When you are 95 years old, where do you want to be? What do you want to have accomplished? Right? Like, get back in each other's heads. That could spark a lot. Just using your words to have good conversation is a kind way to use your words. And again, it's a good place to stop and think, what are our kids learning by the way that we talk, by the way we speak with our husbands, to our husbands, or even about our husbands? What are our kids learning? Are they learning kindness? Are they learning taking an interest in other people and not just being always about ourselves? Are they learning to communicate with warmth? What do they see by the way you talk to your husband, and even when he's not there? How do you talk about your husband? And hopefully they are learning good things that they can model after in their lives. All right, another way to be kind is in our actions. That's letter C. Be kind in your actions, kind actions. There's this proverb in the Bible that talks about a wife of noble character. And she's put out there as an example for us about the kind of wife that God is pleased with, the kind of wife that God would want us to be. So I'm going to read this verse for you. It's Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 12. And it'll be up on the screen. It says, "An excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. Wow, right? That is quite the woman, right? A great example for us. Let's just think through it verse by verse. An excellent wife, who can find? So this is someone who is rare, right? It's rare to find this kind of wife. She is far more precious than jewels, so she's appreciated, she's valued. The heart of her husband trusts in her, so she's a trustworthy woman, and he will have no lack of gain, right? He is so lucky to have her as his wife. And then I want to focus in on this last phrase especially. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. Right? That's love in action. Right? That is a woman who is being a real blessing to her husband. And I think that would be good for us to think about. How can we be a real blessing to our husbands? And it's going to be different for everyone, right? We all have different husbands, the things that they appreciate, the things they enjoy, their personalities, your relationship, how it works, all of those things. But for you to think very specifically, what would be a blessing to my husband? How can I do him good? And I think one of our tendencies would be as women to think, I do my husband good all the time, right? I clean the house, I make him a meal, I take care of the family calendar, I run around, I'm the taxi cab driver, I do all these things for the family. But those things, you could almost say that they are equal to your husband saying, I do my wife good, look, I go to work every day. And you're like, okay, that's good, right? But that's like his responsibility. That's his role. And this is my role. And this is my responsibility. Well, let's think beyond that. The basic things we do in life. Some of these things we actually want to do, right? Our husbands don't need the meals that maybe we want to make. Husbands probably don't care about the house, not all of them at least, in the way that we care about the house. All of those things. Think more specifically to your husband in particular. What would be doing him good? If you were to ask him, how can I do you good? What would he say? What would be a blessing to him? And I don't really want to give you any examples because I think we got to think for ourselves on this, thinking of our husband in particular. What could be a blessing to him? A good marriage has got to have a kind wife, right? You can't have a good marriage without a kind wife. If you have a mean wife, the marriage isn't going to work, right? So we got to at least start there and say, we're going to do our part, right? We are going to be as kind as we can be. It's definitely not less than that. So let's definitely focus on that with our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And I think when we do, we will find that that itself could be transformational to our marriage. But to be honest, this kind of kindness, it could feel extreme on some days. And there's going to be days or longer where you're going to think, my husband is not worthy of this. And I would think in a room this size, there's going to be times where some of you are going to think, actually, my marriage is hopeless. Right? It is never going to be a good marriage, no matter how much effort I put into it. And I still think that all this effort is worth it for two reasons. The first reason is, what other option do you have? Right? Like, do you just want a bad marriage to be a really bad marriage? Right? Is the other option to just go ahead and let it fall apart and let there be more tension in your home? To let your kids see a bigger mess, right? For it to just keep getting worse. Is that the better option? And I think we'd all say, no, that's not the better option. And so maybe it is worth swallowing our pride, moving on from the past, and just saying, okay, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to try to be a kind wife. I'm going to do whatever I can do. And then I think the second reason is not so much a practical reason. It goes much deeper than that. It's because being kind like this is right in an ultimate sense. And put it this way, if there is no God, then do whatever you want, right? Be whatever kind of wife that you want to be. But if there is a God, then we should look to him to see what is right and wrong. And when we look to God, what we see is God is so loving. God is so kind. And he is so when it is totally undeserved. And that is not a flaw in God's character. That is not a weakness. That is not him being a doormat. That is a part of his good and perfect character. Because what the Bible says is God is holy, right? He can do nothing wrong. He is completely perfect. I mean, the textbook definition is he is set apart. He is set apart from everything that is bad. So we can look to him as the perfect standard. And so that means as wives, the standard, the focus is not how do we feel? Do we feel like we want to be kind and loving? It's not, does he deserve it? It's, we look to the ultimate standard and we see who he is and what he's done and we say, wow, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm supposed to strive for. That's what is right. And so we move forward knowing that that's the right thing to do. So you can pick your motive, right? You can do the motive just you want your marriage to be better than it could be. Or you can do it to be like the good character of God, to live after the way he lives. Or you could do both. But either way, it is worth it to be a kind wife. The last place that I think we should focus our efforts as we think through how to build into our marriage is in being really intentional about the rhythms that we go through in life. So point number 3, I said it like this: be an intentional wife. Because if you really value this relationship, you're going to build into it on a regular basis. And there's many, many ways that you could think to do this. But 4 quick ways that I want you to consider. The first one is, real practically, just have a sweet connection each day. That's number 1. Have a sweet connection each day, meaning don't let a day go by where there isn't at least a moment of sweetness. It could be as he's walking out the door, giving him a hug and kiss, saying, I hope you have a good day. It could be when he gets home, stopping what you're doing to recognize that he's home and you're glad to see him. It could be a text in the middle of the day, just saying you're thinking about him, that you love him. It could be anything. Flirt with him a little, right? Just have something in the day where you're building into that relationship. And I think as you do, you'll find that you both start growing more fond of each other. And it means that day by day, you're not letting the relationship grow cold because you're always investing at least a little bit of sweetness into it. And of course, more is better. But I think we can all start with every day, I just want to make sure at least once I have this sweet moment with him. Then number 2, have a special time each week. Have a special time each week. And by that, I mean dating your husband. The way that we used to, when we, probably before kids, you would enjoy going out with your husband, spending special time. It was much easier back then, but we should still make the effort to do it now, even though it is much more complicated. And get creative as you need to, right? Do a babysitter swap. I know a lot of women do that, where one family watches, the kids of both families one night, and then the next week they swap. But I'd say on the off week, when it's not your official date night, still get creative, still have special time together. Maybe put the kids to bed as early as they will let you, and then call DoorDash, have the meal come in, watch a movie, do whatever. Spend time focusing on each other. It doesn't have to be complicated. On your time that you actually get to go out, just take a walk, hold hands. That's when you ask those good conversation questions where you go deeper. Just spending time together, investing in that special kind of way each week is good for our marriages. And will we do it every week? No, probably not, right? We're going to be sick. There's going to be things that come up. But if you shoot for that, that's better than not doing it at all. Number 3, have sporadic fun. Meaning put it on your radar to have a little fun together sometimes. We all used to be so fun, didn't we? Bring a little bit of that back. Enjoy each other. Get a little more creative. Outside of the normal date night time, do something a little crazier, like take a hike. I don't know. Go to the movies. Maybe that's a little more creative. Watch some kind of game. Go to some kind of outing. When you can afford it, go on a trip together, right? Spend some time making some memories together. It reminds me of when I send my teens off to winter camp, which just happened this last weekend. We have a great youth program here. And so they go off to winter camp and they have the time of their lives. But not just that, they get so bonded to each other, right? They get so tight because they went away and they had this unique time together and it made a special bond. It's like no one can break that. And I feel bad for the kids who can't go because they miss out, right? They don't have that same special connection with all of these friends because they missed out on the camp. That's the kind of connection we want to have with our husbands. right? This special, unique bond because we go and do special, fun things together, where we're willing to laugh a little bit more together, where we just create this sweetness. So do whatever you can do. It doesn't have to be grand or expensive, but just find a time where you can really have a little extra moments of memories and enjoyment every once in a while. All right, number 4 is have steady intimacy. I can't talk about marriage and not mention this, right? You should be intimate with your spouse regularly. God created us to be intimate, both relationally with our spouse as well as physically. And it is a good thing, and it is a good thing to make a priority. And during the infancy years, for some reason, it just feels harder. I don't know why. I think our bodies are a wreck, like when we have babies and when we are nursing and all of those things, everything feels out of whack. And you can't do all the things in life, right, when you have little ones. But this is something that you should keep on the priority. You should invest into your marriage physically. You should make that something that you care about and that you prioritize. It will be good for your marriage. And all of these really are great rhythms to focus on. Sweet moments each day, special time each week, sporadic fun, steady intimacy. And I tried to make it easy to remember, just so you can think, as I invest in my marriage, these are the kinds of things that I want to make sure I'm doing because I'm investing little by little deposits that feed the marriage. And alongside, of course, just being a kind person to our spouses. That will really build a marriage that lasts. I was thinking of a different visual besides the starter, something that lasts. And what came to mind was like an old piece of furniture. Right? Not the kind that you buy from Amazon and you get it shipped to you and you have to install it yourself or put it all together, or like the IKEA kind, no offense to IKEA, but I'm talking like the sturdy piece of furniture that your great-grandma owned, where you have to get one person on each corner just to move it like a foot, right? It's like hefty. And you think, how did it get so sturdy? And what it is it's made out of quality materials and it was built intentionally. That's exactly what we want in our marriage, right? We want it to be built out of quality materials. So like real kindness, not fake kindness. We're not putting on a show, right? Real kindness from our hearts, a real thoughtfulness, genuine, real gratitude, words and actions that actually bless our spouse. They don't just check the box, but because we want to be a blessing. And then it's built intentionally, right? Little by little, gesture by gesture, moment by moment, word by word, we are trying to build into this, and then it does become sturdy. And then when you think of furniture, you think of like over time it has dents. And that's probably going to be true of our marriages, right? Hard times are going to come. It's not going to always be easy. But when you think of that furniture, those dents, they give it character, right? I mean, sometimes that vintage furniture, it gets better with age. And in our relationships, hard times are going to come, but if we can handle them right, our marriages too, they can become better with age. So let's build something that lasts. Small acts of kindness, faithful investment, year after year, day after day. Hopefully, starting today. So I hope you have some good discussion just thinking through how can I invest better in my marriage starting today and then day by day from here on. Thanks for having me.